Welcome on into the Wolverine.com podcast. Clayton Sayfie here with Chris Balas and Anthony Broome. Chris and I are courtside here at Ball Arena in Denver. Apologize for any background noise.
Sitting across from each other.
Yeah, we're sitting on different sides of the court to avoid any echo or whatever. But we're excited to be here. We're going to get into our show, which is brought to you by the 2025 official Michigan Jordan Fly Elite football. You can get yours today at biggameusa.com/Wolverines. Got the graphic on the screen there. Thank you to them for sponsoring today's show. From Denver, we're going to get, we'll start with a vibe check here, which is the thing I have to say to start is the team looks loose but confident.
I knew you were going to say that. And he said that earlier, and I always laugh when he does. But I got to tell you a story, okay? So we're sitting here during the shoot around and the practice, the open practice, and Dusty May comes over here and he sits right down and he talks about Clay's great story with Mike Forrest, his former player at FAU, and he starts just chatting with him about what a great kid he is. And we're thinking, John Beilein used to do this too. Juwan Howard didn't do it so much, and Clay's eyes lit up like it was Christmas morning. And this was right after he got a picture at center court. Clay is in his element here. Obviously, this is what a great environment, right? Denver, first time in Denver, but you can just sense, man, how much fun it is and how much fun Dusty May is having. This guy is the real deal. And I think this is going to be one of many, many tournaments that we cover under Dusty May here, guys. And hopefully next week, Anthony Broome will be with us in Atlanta and they move on. I got a really good feeling about this team going into this tournament.
Yeah, well, I don't want to knock you guys off your pedestal or anything, but I stayed back. Football still pays the bills around here. Someone had to be in that facility this week, so relax. We'll see. Maybe we'll see in Atlanta. I don't know. Might not have time. There might not be time. We'll see what happens. But no, it's the week moves by so fast between Selection Sunday and then all of a sudden it's Wednesday. You guys are on an airplane covering a practice. There's a game tomorrow, mind you. It's a longer wait than all these other games, which in some ways is nice, in other ways not so much for us working folk. But it's exciting, and you take a couple days to kind of go over the bracket, go over the matchups, and I'll be honest, I still haven't filled out an entire bracket yet. I don't know where I'm leaning in any of these directions. So locked into this Michigan team and how far they might go. And Chris, you and I talked about this in the car on Sunday, and I think a colleague in the coaching industry of yours even echoed the sentiment that in a lot of ways, the hardest one, at least in this pod, might be the first one that you get in this game tomorrow night. So excited for that.
Yeah, no question. It starts here. Let's start with that. So we met with Dusty May, Michigan's players, went in the locker room there. Eric Olin, head coach of UC San Diego, also held a press conference along with three of their players who don't look like great basketball players, and they admitted as much, and they laughed about it as they did, but they are a great team, 30-4 this year. They haven't lost a game since January 18th. They're on the nation's longest winning streak. This is their first season eligible for the NCAA tournament after a 4-year transition period following their transition from Division II. And by the way, the whole roster up and down pretty much is Division II players. This is a remarkable story. And Chris, I said it to you after those guys left the podium. I said, they have the faces and the look of guys that if Michigan doesn't take care of business on Thursday, will be the talk of the tournament, will be going viral on social media. How did these guys win a game? Look at these, players who are undersized, not very athletic, but just win and have a great system, and credit their coaching staff. Sounds like they've done an unbelievable job. And there's a reason why Dusty May wanted to study this team in the offseason. Now he got a head start on it and is probably, it's keeping him up a little bit at night. But their coach also said Michigan's size is something they're worried about as well. So it goes back and forth. But it's an interesting matchup. And if you're Michigan, like you guys said, the first one might be the toughest. You just got to get that one out of the way and move on, survive and advance this time of year.
Yeah, one thing Dusty May said that kind of stuck with me was when he was at Florida Atlantic, he said, when you're playing these better teams and these better seeded teams, and once you get over that initial euphoria of, hey, we're in the Big Ten tournament, then you start to realize that, hey, we can play with these guys a little bit. And if it's a tight game down the stretch, one team's getting tight because they're expected to win. And the other one is like, well, we got nothing to lose, and that could very well be UCSD tomorrow night. So Dusty May understands that. And another thing that he said that really stuck with me was everybody, of course, was talking about the turnovers, right? And they force a lot of turnovers, and Michigan turns the ball over a lot, and so on and so forth. But he said it's not like we haven't seen teams that try to play us this way. It's not like we haven't seen those teams with similar defenses this year. Sometimes we did better, sometimes we didn't, but they know exactly what to look for and what they do want to do and what they don't want to do. And you get just a much better feeling and a much better sense of preparation from Dusty May that he's not going to get caught off guard by anything. He's already proven himself to be a very good postseason coach, right? He's got 2 banners, Final Four banner at Florida Atlantic, which is still unbelievable to me. And it's still unbelievable to me, frankly, that he's Michigan's coach, right? That he wanted this job, and he really kind of pined for it. So, and now he's got that Big Ten tournament banner. So, I love he just felt confident, didn't he, Clay, when he's sitting right here on this table in front of
Loose
Clay,
too. Yeah.
loose and confident, and just really in his element. You just feel like they're in really, really good hands, Anthony.
When you come into a game like this where you are everyone's pick to go down, because when you look at the KenPom profiles, you see the turnovers, you see the end of the season, you see all the close games, and you get a lot of times when there are these upsets in this tournament, it's because you have a team that's been rolling all year, that is used to punking everyone, and they play tight when things get tight, and that's where you're kind of prone to an upset. This is a Michigan team that a lot of times this year they have played down to their level of competition, which is not something you want to see, but have still won a lot of close games, a lot of tight games, and you just get the sense that they're not going to flinch. They're not going to be nervous. If they get to the under 4 timeout and it's a 1 or 2 possession game in either direction, So for me, and Dusty May, he's a guy who, I get that it took a 1 seed going down to a 16 for them, to open up their road to make a Final Four at FAU. But this is still a guy who has been on the other side of those upsets in terms of it. During that run, you beat Tennessee, you beat Kansas State. So you just feel like, especially in this pod of games that they'll play in, you go and feeling like Michigan has one of the tougher, more resilient teams. And you have, I think, arguably, of these 4 teams that'll play in Denver tomorrow night, you arguably, I think, have the best coach team as well. So I think that's something to feel good about heading into this weekend, and especially in this game tomorrow night.
I agree. And Chris, some of the points you just made there is similar to what Danny Wolf talked about and Reuben Jones. And those 2 guys have pulled off upsets in this tournament, so they have the experience doing it. Reuben Jones over Purdue at North Texas a few years ago, Danny Wolf at Yale over Trey Donaldson's Auburn Tigers last season. And they talked about, and Danny said that he had a, kind of speech to the team about what it's like being in that position, how, you just gain confidence as the game goes on. Almost like Michigan-Ohio State football last year, where it's like, as the afternoon or the evening gets longer and longer and it's a tight game, then maybe you get a little bit more uncomfortable. You get tight, to your point, Anthony. And, Michigan can't allow that to happen. Like you said, they've had a lot of experience. They were in a title hunt. At the same time, Eric Olin, the coach for UC San Diego, was talking about how we've been in can't-lose situations for 2 months now, because when you're a 1-bid league, you have to get the 1 seed, or at least you ideally want to get the 1 seed in your conference tournament to set yourself up for potentially making the NCAA tournament. That's what they did. So, it's a clash there. Now, I guess let's get into some keys to victory for this game. But before we do, we have to talk about the official Michigan Jordan Fly Elite football, which just dropped. I didn't bring mine on the road. I was kind of just trying to jam pack everything for 5 days, hopefully 2 games here in Colorado. But for the first time ever, Jordan Brand's signature innovation, performance, and swagger are hitting the turf in the Big House. This is the official game ball of the Wolverines, and you will see it in action all season long. As I pull up the graphic there, multitasking. As Michigan builds on its championship legacy, the football is designed for precision, control, and game-changing performance. Here's what makes it special. Signature Maze, Jumpman, and Block M logos, iconic symbols of innovation and performance. It's engineered to Michigan's QB specs, designed with input and guidance from the Wolverines players and coaches. It's pebbled lace, a visible colorized maze lace reinforcement flap, and overlay stripe technology for better optimal off-lace control. Handcrafted in the USA by Big Game Football Factory. Every ball comes with a certificate of authenticity. It's not just a football. It's a piece of Michigan history, perfect for true Michigan fans to display or give it as a gift. Be among the first to own it. Join us. All three of us have one, and they are awesome. Snap yours today at biggameusa.com/Wolverines. That is biggameusa.com/Wolverines. Let's start when Michigan has the basketball in this game against a really unique defense. 6'8" is their tallest player that they're going to play in this game. Michigan with the 2 7-footers presents problems for them, but they play a unique style. They're going to force you to the baseline and then help every single time from the baseline. They're a no middle defense. They'll play a matchup zone at times as well. And Dusty May said today that basketball is a game of opposites. He said, what? He actually said this to Andrew Conham, I'm looking at from across the court. He said, what'd you say they were? No middle? He's like, all right, well, we're going to try to go to the middle. So they're, going to try to do what they do, but this team forces a ton of turnovers. You can't let those pile up. At the same time, like we said on the show a few days ago, if they rely so much on forcing turnovers, and Michigan's a bad turnover team, yeah, they may turn it over a lot, but the game may come down to all the other areas, right? If you finish at the rim, if you make your open 3-point shots that I think you're going to get, talked to Amari Burnett about that today. Those looks probably are going to be there, given the way they defend. They're going to, leave shooters. Your guys' thoughts on the way Michigan's going to have to execute? They're really going to have to execute in this one.
Yeah, Vlad's going to have to pass better than he has out of the post, because I think once he gets that ball, he's going to be getting a lot of attention, and he's going to have to just take his time, don't panic, right? And when he does that and finds open shooters, then I think they're going to be fine. We saw some guys knocking down shots out here. Now there's a difference obviously between practice and game, right? Amari Burnett couldn't hit a shot out here to save his life for the first 15 minutes. I hate to even say that. I don't want to give anything away, or hopefully he doesn't watch us and it doesn't affect his confidence. I'm pretty sure that won't happen.
He's a listener.
Right. Reuben Jones was out here draining threes. Roddy Gale was draining threes. And again, difference between practice and game. Roddy Gale's got 2 threes since January 1st. So, but here's the thing. As you were talking about, and Dusty May said, they want to force you to the baseline. We weren't going to go baseline, right? I think you're going to see some opportunities for some of the offense that they haven't been able to run in the Big Ten. Again, maybe a little bit of that 4-5 pick and roll. We'll see. But and again, you're going to have to make shots in this tournament to win it. But at the same time, even if you don't, we saw with Wisconsin, right? If you do everything else right and everything else well, especially defensively, it's going to be tough. It's going to be really tough for them to score on this Michigan team too. I think it was their coach said, hey, what did we do to draw the Big Ten champions as a 5 seed? When he watched them play, he said, everybody's talking about us. And he's like, well, we have to play the Big Ten champions. And, it's not a great draw for them either. And I don't think that's what a lot of people are kind of ignoring, that fact that they have not seen length like this. They were talking about, we got to play our game and so on and so forth. It's a lot easier to play your game when you don't have a Vlad Golden in there protecting the rim, or you don't have a Danny Wolf in there as well. So it's going to be much harder for them to get there. So if they guard that 3-point line and they don't turn the ball over at a crazy amount, I think somebody said as long as they don't spaz out on offense, they should be okay, is one way to put it. And I agree with that. Then I think this could be a comfortable win.
Yeah, it has the ingredients of that. A lot of it's going to come down to, you hate to simplify it, but are you going to make your shots? They've gotten a lot of good looks this year that just haven't fallen. On the flip side of that, this UC San Diego team, obviously almost half their offense comes via the 3-pointer, and they want to play slow. They want to slow you down a bit. I think the faster that Michigan's able to run in this game, the more it's able to kind of get up and down the floor, as it did, a lot of times in the Big Ten tournament, which is as good as it's looked in a long time. I think of the Purdue game, that was probably the best it's been all season long. If you don't beat yourself, I think this is a game you can win by 8 to 10 points, even if you don't have your A game. So to me, I think a lot of it comes down to, what do those big guys do? What is Danny Wolf? How careful or careless with the basketball is he? Is he making, the opportunity to, some of the best games he's had this year, catch the ball on the wing and he just lets it go. But then you think back to the Michigan State game, a couple of times where he just kind of hesitates for a second, passes it back out. No, these guys have to play loose and kind of, I think the faster they play benefits them, certainly if they can, eliminate a lot of these self-inflicted errors that they've had. So I feel pretty good about it, despite, I know, again, UC San Diego is kind of an analytics darling, and they play a unique style of basketball, like you guys have said. But I just kind of feel like if the mistakes don't snowball for Michigan in this game, and they can run this UC San Diego team off the 3-point line, I don't see any reason this can't be kind of a break from what the last half of the season was in these closer than they need to be type of games.
And to that point, I did ask Dusty May, not to interrupt you, Clay, about the tempo and what they need to do and the altitude, right? And everybody makes a big deal about the altitude, and they say, oh, well, San Diego comes from, lower altitude than Michigan, but it is a thing, and he's going to shorten the shifts for some of his guys. For Vlad Golden, he said he's going to have to do that. They aren't going to be as deep as they thought they were with Sam Walters out and Justin Pippen not making the trip, but he did talk about Fat Brooks, maybe giving him a possibility of a little bit more playing time, but LJ Cason's going to be a guy that's going to have to play a lot more. But he did say, hey, they play a slower style, which is to our benefit. At the same time, you want that transition offense too. So it's going to be like those frequent line changes against a better hockey team, right? You're going to have to maybe shorten the shifts a little bit but still play your game. So it'll be a fascinating chess match. All I know is that these are two extremely well-coached teams. They both had high praise for each other, and it's going to be one of those that comes down to you hate to say it, it's cliche, but Dusty May said the same thing. It's about execution, and more than anything, it's not about, hey, it's there on, you got the chip on your shoulder, blah 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 blah. If we execute, we're going to win this ball game, and I think that's where I am with Michigan.
Yeah, I agree. Shifting over to UC San Diego, some of their guys, Hayden Gray, their point guard, leads the country in steals. It seemed like a confident guy talking up at the podium today. Tyler McGuy is their 3-point specialist. He's taken 277 3-point attempts this year. Got to be one of the highest in the country. It's over 100 more than any of his teammates. So they're going to look for him to shoot. And then the guy, Aniwaniwa Tate Jones, who I've been practicing that name in preparation for this podcast the last few days, say it in my head. At 5 a.m, driving over to the airport this morning.
You could have just said Iwa like his teammates do.
True. But I don't know. It's a challenge. We're journalists. Yeah. We got to get all the details. And so 6'6", 200-pounder, draws 8 fouls per 40 minutes, third in the country, gets downhill, plays physical, former rugby player out of New Zealand, another D2 transfer on this team. He's not a shooter. 14 of 46 from 3 on the season. So the interesting thing is matchups here and what Michigan's going to do. They're going to switch 1 through 4, but where do you hide Vlad Golden, so to speak? It could be on Chris Howell, a St. Mary's transfer who Justin Joyner, Michigan assistant, coached over the last few years before he transferred over to UC San Diego. He's not much of a shooter either. Tate Jones, is going to be driving, handling the ball a lot, so that would pull Vlad out on the perimeter. You want to be able to keep him inside the paint, in my opinion, to help with rebounding, to help with rim protection, and then you switch everything else and you stay home on shooters. To me, this game comes down to help on each side. The other side, they're going to be helping all over the place. How do you deal with that? This side, don't help as much as possible. Limit it. Stay home on the shooters because, Chris, you can speak to this because you watch more of it than I did. The San Diego State game, first game of the year for UC San Diego, overwhelmed. They lost close, I believe, but overwhelmed a little bit by the size and athleticism. At the end of the day, if you stay home on shooters, I think Michigan will have enough rim protection to win this game as long as they don't get in foul trouble. And Tate Jones is great at obviously getting to the free throw line.
And it's encouraging what they did against Wisconsin in that respect, right? When I asked Dusty May about the defensive discipline when shots weren't falling, he said the same thing. He said, we really made them work to get to their spots. We were into our scouting report maybe better than we've been all year. And the communication was better, he said, than it's been all year. And that's exactly what you need in games like these. So it's one and done now, guys. You blow an assignment or two, and that could be the difference in a game like that. And I thought they did extremely I was mostly impressed with that side of the floor in the Wisconsin game, as much as I was with the improvement in the offense, right? The ball protection against Purdue, the rebounding against Maryland. But what they did defensively when shots weren't falling, at one point, I think they were 24%, and Wisconsin was 22 because, yeah, they were getting some open looks, but they were gassed getting there to those shots, and they left the shooters open that they didn't really worry about as much, right? So that's, to me, that's what I feel really good about here, is the way they're playing defensively. So I think they're going to score inside, guys. I really do. I think Vlad's going to have a big game. I think Danny Wolf's going to be a really, really tough matchup for them. And but as the great M Hoops one said on our website, this isn't going to be a dump it into Vlad game, every time down the floor. They gotta pick and post him, pick and pop, and put him in the middle of that zone at times, and run their offense from there. But Dusty May knows what he's doing, guys. He's been planning on this. I guarantee you, he was scouting this on the flight home, or the bus ride home, whatever it was, from Indianapolis. When it comes to preparation, yeah, John Beilein. I think John Beilein is the GOAT, obviously, but I think Dusty May is working himself into that category in terms of what he does to prepare for teams and tournaments.
I don't have much more to add than that. I think I've been pretty impressed all year. I think that, in some respects, you can make the argument that this team has maybe punched a little bit above its weight, just in terms of, they're just not as deep as we thought they would be. And they're going to be even less deep in this tournament. Haven't shot the ball as well as they did early in the year. I think at this point, that's just kind of who they are, given how the last 2 months or so have gone. But they're incredibly tough. They're incredibly well coached. There's an unflappability to them that I really like, that I trust in a game like this, where you need to be on high alert. And, I just think more than anything else, that last weekend sort of rejuvenated them. I think had they lost Saturday, they would have still got what they wanted out of last weekend in terms of getting back to normal. Obviously, they wanted a banner, but that you were able to kind of win 3 games in 3 days, and 3 very different, styles, and how it all went down. I trust them in this game. And then you move on to the next matchup and see what that looks like. So, yeah, I'm pretty confident. Maybe that's just because we're so close to it. And, when you're the higher seeded team, you think there's just no way, there's no possible way that you could be the team that goes down. And, ask Kentucky, ask the Purdue's of the world, ask, any team that's gone through that, Michigan and Ohio in 2012. You don't think you can be that team until you are. But in terms of this particular matchup, I really like how everything sort of plays out for them. And if the turnovers are going to be an issue, it's because they made it an issue. There could be some things that UC San Diego does to play into that, but all year this has been a self-inflicted wound. So they got to bring their A game, and I would love to see them, move the ball like they did in that Purdue game on Friday.
Yep. And on that note, talking to LJ Kaysen about the scouting report, which he seems to be very dialed into lately, and that's one of the things I think the coaching staff is liking about the way he's turned a corner this year. He said this is defensively what they're looking at from an offensive standpoint against their defense is kind of a mix between Wisconsin and Purdue. So they do have some reference points on how they're going to play this. It's interesting, the momentum factor of the Big Ten tournament too, where you talk to some of the guys like Roddy Gale and said, we're just going to, continue this in, and we have the same mentality as Big Ten tournament. And then I asked Trey Donaldson about carrying the momentum, and he said, you really can't, because it's a new season in and of itself. So, and I agree with both, right? But I do think what they did in the Big Ten tournament to find their groove again was really important. It might not be momentum, but it might have just been improvement in figuring out what how to get back to playing at that level. Now it's all thrown out the window. I kind of like that they're playing a late game on Thursday, because the guys will get a chance to watch some of the games. There will be a couple crazy upsets, and maybe, I don't know, like sometimes if you're that first game, you just don't understand like what's about to go down here in the first couple of days, the chaos. I don't have the data to back any of it up. There might be more upsets on Friday than there are on Thursday, right? But that's just the way I've looked at it, where we all get reminded, right? You fill out a bracket, it's like, oh yeah, this team, that team. Like you said, Anthony, it's like, no way that team loses. I got them in my Elite Eight. Oh, they're gone first round. But at the same time, I think a lot of the guys with the blend of guys that are on this team, they understand what can happen in a situation like this, which either gives them a leg up or maybe they're going to be tighter. Who knows? That's why it's going to be fun to watch.
Ask Trey Donaldson, who I poked a little fun at when he was up there, because everybody's asking asking Danny Wolf about the Yale upset of Auburn last year, and you see Trey over there kind of nodding, and he was on that Auburn team that got beat. So I finally asked him. I said, "Okay, what was your perspective on that?" And then we were in shoot around today, and he comes over and goes, "Ah, you want to start some trouble, right?" In that press conference, and I said, "Hey, yeah, now you just got to, you don't want it to happen twice. Don't let it happen again." But this is just a great group of guys, and the big thing, guys, is that they've learned how to win again and how it feels to win again. Because in 4 out of 6 games there, they were getting their butts handed to them. Yeah, so they come out in the Big Ten tournament. They beat 3 really good basketball teams to win that thing in 3 different styles. So there's that confidence. They get that confidence back because that was a huge part of it, right? And it's hard to get back at some point when you are down and everybody's talking badly about you, including us. I didn't think there was any way that they were going to be able to win that tournament. I think they were 7th best odds to win the Big Ten tournament. And we've seen teams limp into the postseason, but I've never seen a team limp that badly in where they just look completely out of sorts, guys. 22 points and a half against Maryland at home in the first half. And you had 3 halves of 50 plus given up, I think, in 3 or 4 games defensively. And you're thinking, how are they going to get this back? And how are they going to get their mojo back going into the postseason? And then they come out and kick the living hell out of Purdue. And you're like, where was that? But that was, to me, that was key because one thing that Tommy Amaker always used to say, and it's contagious. Basketball is contagious.
This is his time of year.
It is his time of year, right, right. But he did used to say, when you make shots, it's contagious. When you start winning, it can be contagious. And that was the one thing that I took from Tommy Amaker, and he was right. Some people will say it's cliche, but when you see shots going in and you're on a run, man, you can't wait to shoot. And you see your teammate make one, you want to make one. When you win, it feels right, and you get it back. So that to me was huge, and that's what gives me confidence going into this tournament. I think that they finally figured out again how good it feels to win and how much fun you can have doing it.
Once again, I think incredibly well said by you, Chris.
That's why he's the best in the business.
Should we get out of here with predictions?
Let's do it.
Okay. I guess I'll go.
Yeah.
I got Michigan. This is going to get clipped and when it all goes wrong, but I got Michigan winning by 14 points. I just think that this UC San Diego team hasn't been tested. I think they're capable of beating Michigan, but they played 5 top 100 teams, 1 top 50. Their biggest win is Utah State, who's a 10 seed and a good team this year. But I think this is a different animal with the size of Michigan. I think that defensively, Michigan does. You would think maybe 2 7-footers would play into their hands on the other end of the floor, but Danny Wolf can really guard on the perimeter. Honestly, he's one of their better perimeter defenders. You guys, when we're sitting next to each other during these games, he gets matched up on Braden Smith. I'm kind of pumped. Here we go. That's a great matchup for him. And same with the wings that Wisconsin has. So I think that, on paper, maybe it doesn't look as good on that end of the floor, but I don't see necessarily, unless they hit 15 threes, UC San Diego winning this game. They're capable of doing it, but I got them. I got UC San Diego falling to the Michigan Wolverines by 14 points.
I don't see them getting a lot of really good, easy looks from 3. And it's a lot different when you're shooting a 3, fade away with your hand in your face or off the line a little bit further. And, after running 20 seconds just to get your shot. So I'm with you, Clay. I got something like 74-62 Michigan. I like the Wolverines in this one. Watching film of a couple UCSD games, I love the way they play together. I just don't see them hanging against as long as Michigan doesn't, as long as Michigan doesn't completely spaz out with turnovers and everything else, then I think that they're going to win this game. So we will have some stuff in our Inside the Fort tomorrow morning. I talked to somebody from San Diego about this as well to get his thoughts and about what he thinks about this UCSD team. A couple of different people actually. So tune in tomorrow as well.
Yeah, I think this will be a pretty. I'll say something like 76-66 Michigan. I wouldn't be surprised if, it's the NCAA tournament. I wouldn't be surprised if it was more than that, if it was a close game, whatever it is. But a lot of this, and it's not an apples to apples comparison, but a lot of the talk about, Michigan better be careful. You better watch out. It kind of reminds me of the 2013 NCAA tournament when they played VCU, and everyone's like, that's a weird team, weird matchup. VCU, they're the upstart team. And then the Michigan just kind of came out and hammered them. My gut says that's probably the more likely outcome, given what we just saw last weekend. But again, you got to go out, got to win the games. I saw the right things last weekend. I've read the right things, in the couple minutes I saw of your guys' coverage from practice today. So I'm pretty confident about it. And hey, again, we know that if we're wrong, we'll get clipped and people will laugh at us. That's if you don't ever put yourself on the line, then you'll never be clipped or you'll never have anything bad said about you. And that's a scared way to live. But I'm with you guys. I think this will be a double-digit win.
If someone wants to rip me for a prediction gone wrong, they will have to present their perfect bracket. Okay, they're gonna have to. They're gonna have to show that. Last thing for me is with all that said, I do think there's going to be a storm or two that they're going to have to weather in this game too. It might look sloppy, 4 turnovers in a row, or this team's liable to doing that, right? Even some of their best wins, there's like this: you get a big lead, you blow a lead, then so all that is probably going to happen. I don't know that this team's played a full 40 minutes still. Purdue, but even then, there were some ups and downs, and you're playing a really good team that somehow was seated ahead of you. But any final thoughts before we get out of here?
I can't wait, guys. This is the best time of year. You smell the paint on the floor. I took a couple pictures of Clay out there on the March Madness logo. So he's taking it in. Man, it seems like yesterday that I was covering the John Beeline's first NCAA tournament team here. And that had to have been, 15 years ago? Something like that, 16 years ago. Time flies. So
yeah, I mean, you've been doing this for a while, so I can't.
Yeah, exactly. It's unbelievable, and it's unbelievable how fast it goes. I'm excited for you guys that you have so many more of these to cover. Good Lord willing, I'll be here for another 10 years or so, and I think as long as Dusty May is here, this is gonna be an annual occurrence, fellas. And God bless him. God bless him for coming here and saving this program, because the last year, I think I went to 8 games and covered 8 games last year. God bless Clayton Sayfie and Anthony Broome for enduring that last year. I wasn't going to put up with that shit. I'm too old for that, guys, to sit there and waste 2 hours of my time on really, really crappy basketball. So it ain't going to be that way anymore. And we're going to have some fun, fellas.
Well, third time's a charm. I have nothing else to add to
that. All right.
I was going to say.
Let's get out of here and get a beer, Clay.
Let's get something to eat. We haven't eaten anything all day.
Right, that too. That wouldn't.
It's been a weird day. Yeah, getting up super early.
Hey, but stay hydrated out there, guys. The altitude will get you. So
we can only drink out of these Powerade cups. NCAA mandate. We're under the rules of what Charlie Baker and all them here. So super excited for tomorrow. We got a bunch of coverage over at thewolverine.com. Also football as well, and recruiting as always. Head over there. Use the promo code UM1 for 2 months of premium access for just $1. Thanks to our sponsor, Big Game USA. You get the official Michigan football over there, biggameusa.com/Wolverines. We will see everyone, and hopefully some of you here in Denver, but we'll see everyone on the next show.